This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 231 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, we're going to be talking about how to use emotional intelligence for business with Sheetal Sujan. This was such an amazing conversation. You guys know that I truly believe that the way that we handle our businesses as women is often tied, not necessarily when you think of like emotions being weak, nothing like that, but it's tied to our productivity that is connected to our emotional intelligence. And Sheetal dives into this and gives us not only the reasons why, but also how to come out of times when we start to spiral. So if you are one of those people where you feel like you start to get down on yourself and you're not getting the tasks done that you want to get done, this episode is for you. I'm telling you, you are not going to want to miss this. As always, if you guys want to send me a DM on Instagram at Jenny_Melrose, I would love to be able to send to you her course that she is offering. You're going to hear about this. It is absolutely free for you to be able to dive deeper into this. I'm going to remind you again at the end of the episode, but for right now, if you think that emotional intelligence could definitely help your business, which I'm telling you it can, then send me a DM at Jenny_Melrose on Instagram so that I can send you the link to her course. All right, you guys, let's dive in. Hi, Sheetal. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Jen, for having me here.
Yes, I am so excited to have you on the podcast and to really dive into emotional intelligence for business. I always, anytime we can do like the psychology behind things, it always gets me all sorts of excited. It's because I was also a psych major and way back when that I don't feel like I apply. So this gets me excited to get to talk about that. Before we jump into that though, will you introduce yourself and your business to my audience, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Sheetal Sujan. I'm married. I'm a mother of two. I have a 4-year-old and I have a 2-year-old. I have 2 companies, mainly doing training, coaching, and consulting, and have been doing this for over 10 years now. So I create tailor-made training programs for the public and the private sector. So we work with the government as well. And I mainly teach topics in customer service. I do team building sessions. We talk about productivity, emotional intelligence is one of them, and the Meyers-Briggs type indicator. I am a Meyers-Briggs type indicator practitioner, as well as an emotional intelligence practitioner. So a lot of the programs that I have are revolved around these 2 topics. And my goal in everything I do is to help individuals, teams, organizations really find their better selves. To just put that in a nutshell.
Okay, I love that. And we actually met on Clubhouse and I was attracted to it because I feel like this whole emotional side of things is often ignored when it comes to business. We think, we got to know how to create that funnel. We need to know how to create the course. But if we don't connect it to this whole idea of emotional intelligence, I think we actually slow ourselves down or are not as productive as we could possibly be. So will you define what exactly is emotional intelligence? Let's break it down, make it as simple as possible.
Absolutely. So emotional intelligence is the ability to manage and understand our emotions and manage and understand the emotions of others, to keep it really, really simple. But when we think about it, it may sound simple, but there are many different components that make up emotional intelligence. A lot of times people see the word emotional and emotional intelligence, and they're like, well, does it only have to do with my emotions? Is it for the weak? But, there's this misconception of what emotional intelligence is, and it's so much more than that. A lot of times people ask me, well, if you're teaching emotional intelligence, what kind of results could people expect? And I sometimes don't know how to answer that question because there's so many things you can gain out of it. So we're definitely going to get into that right now. So
yes.
Definitely fire away with the questions.
All right. No, that sounds good. What are the 5 components of emotional intelligence?
Okay, so the 5 components are self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, which I like to call mindful motivation. And then there's relationships and social awareness. And of course, if you dive a little deeper, if you think about self-awareness is really knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your passions, knowing the things that drive you, what makes you you. And believe it or not, a lot of people have forgotten about that, especially in businesses, right? They stop thinking about who am I as a person, or if you relate that to businesses, well, what do we stand for? Why are we here? What are we here to deliver? When people start to really dig deeper in self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence, and that's why it starts there, then we can answer the other questions like, okay, now that I know this about myself, how do I regulate my emotions? How do I motivate myself? How do I manage my relationships? What kind of relationships am I attracted to? If you don't know yourself, how do you know who you're going to get along with? So all these other elements add up when we have a higher sense of self-awareness.
Okay, so when I'm thinking of it, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more or less tied to my values of what makes me unique, in that if I have a zone of genius so that I know where I should be spending my time in certain tasks and what I should be handing off. Am I close?
You are absolutely right. I mean, you couldn't have said it more perfect because, and I like that you use the word productivity, because just think about it, right? If we are in tune with our emotions, okay, this is not just about emotions. This is about everything. This is everything that has to do with you. And you know what makes you happier. You know what drives you. You know what you're passionate about. And you do more of that, you're going to feel so good on the inside. And when you feel good on the inside, you're more productive. You get more done. You're a better person for yourself and for others. And all of this is tied to emotional intelligence.
Yes. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. And I'm going back through and I'm thinking of like certain clients that have asked me about mindset things. So when it comes to emotional intelligence, it really goes back to that whole mindset. Will you talk a little bit about, there was that middle piece that you talked about as far as self-motivation, but you called it something different.
Mindful motivation.
Mindful. Okay. Can you kind of dive a little bit into that? Because I think that is something that as entrepreneurs that have to run our own businesses, that have to create our own schedules, that many people struggle with as far as that motivation piece. And I think what you talked about before a little bit, as far as like feeling happy and continuing to want to do those things, that's where people struggle and they spiral, where it's kind of like all of the motivation is just sucked out of them and they don't want to do it anymore. So Talk a little bit about that mindful motivation.
Okay. So I like to call it mindful motivation because the first thing we have to start out with is what motivates us. Okay. And again, it will go back to self-awareness. We need to be more self-aware of the things that motivate us. What are the reasons why we're motivated to do something? And when I teach my courses, I usually tell people to make a list of 2 things. Create a list of everything that motivates you today. It doesn't matter where, in your personal life, in your work life, in your relationships. Make that list and make another list of all the things that do not motivate you. The things that drain you, the things that you procrastinate, the things that, you're like, oh, not today, tomorrow. Because, it's the things that we're not motivated to do, we procrastinate on that. So when people make those 2 lists and they say, okay, this is what motivates me, because when I do these things, I'm lit up. But when I have to do these things, I'm completely drained. And then they can evaluate, okay, now that I am mindful of what motivates me and what doesn't motivate me, it helps them to make better decisions. So say you started out, like, let's say you say, I love making candles, for example. And you're not doing this as a business, and somebody gives you this idea, hey, you make really good candles, and you see that you do it on the side and you do it for fun, why don't you start a business? And they're like, oh yeah, I love doing this. So, that's actually a really good idea. It's a nice side hustle if they're working a 9 to 5 somewhere else. Now, the goal is there, the intention is there, They're what? Well, I like making candles, so I'm going to make it happen. Why do I like it? I enjoy it. Time goes by really fast. I feel blissful. I feel happy. And we have all these right reasons. Now, you started a business. Now, you are good at making candles, but maybe you're not good at starting a business or running a business, okay? But you have this goal that, hey, I'm going to sell candles. And then what happens as time goes on, because the whole idea of starting and doing a business in candle making may hold you back because you don't know anything, you might be like, oh, maybe this isn't really for me. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And what happens is if we're not conscious about our goals, our purpose, our why we intended it in the first place, why we started in the first place, then it's easy for us to make excuses on the things that are not working out. Then we'll be like, oh, this is not for me, or I shouldn't have started this in the first place. We get demotivated easily. But if our intentions are in the right place and we're more mindful about why we do what we do, the why of what we're doing is our juice. That's what keeps us going. That keeps the wheels turning. Well, I'm doing this because I want to do X, Y, and Z. And no matter the setbacks, you will find a way to motivate yourself to keep pushing through. So then you'll say, okay, I'm not good at this. Let me, start a course, or maybe let me learn from someone, or let me speak to someone who is running a business. And you will find ways to overcome it versus finding excuses as to why you shouldn't do it. So, which is why motivation is so important in business, because, when we go back to the why did I begin this in the first place? Why is this important to me or my family or anyone around me? And if that why is a very strong purpose, reason tied to our values, tied to our intentions, tied to everything around us, no matter the setbacks, you will keep pushing forward and you will keep making it happen. And it's not to say that you're not going to have bad days. Of course, we're human beings. We're going to have bad days. You're not going to be happy all the time. But you're not going to let those setbacks get the better of you. You're going to go through that bad day and say, okay, I'm just having a bad day. I'm going to give myself a break. I'm going to step back a little bit. And the next morning, you're going to wake up refreshed, remind yourself of why you were doing this, and you're going to get back at it. And you're going to feel good again to, keep going. So, which is why motivation is such an important thing. The more mindful we are of what motivates us, the easier it gets to motivate.
So good.
Ourselves and others. Yeah.
That's excellent. Because as you were talking, I'm looking back over my own journey as a business owner. And I started in 2009. So I've been online for, 12 years. Crazy. But it started off as a hobby. And someone said, oh, you can make some money doing this. This could be monetized. You could do these things. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, I enjoy it. Like you were talking about with the candle making. But I connected it to why. And I think that was just something that was motivated within me to know to do that. And it's something that I think we've talked about quite a few times on previous podcast episodes with my audience about connecting it to that why. But I love that you're showing them why they need the why, right? Because you are going to spiral. You are going to lose motivation. You are going to get run down in the middle of a pandemic while you're crisis schooling your kids and being like, why am I wasting my time trying to build this business at the same time? But that gives you the motivation to continue to move forward. So I love your explanation of that. So how does emotional intelligence lead to business success? I think we've kind of already started to step into this, talking about how the motivation is there and where we can go. Are there other pieces that you feel like it leads to business success when you can have your own emotional intelligence and really self-awareness like you talked about?
Absolutely. So I once did a free masterclass called Emotional Intelligence in Marketing. And believe it or not, there's such a strong connection. Because if you think of self-awareness, right? In self-awareness, what I teach is, get to know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes, your dislikes, positive things about yourself. And if you link that to business, you need to know, what is your business about? What is your mission? What is your vision? What are your core values? What do you stand for, right? All those things is the self-awareness part of the business. If we don't know that, honestly, we shouldn't be in business. Why did we start this in the first place? I mean, profit is one thing, but there are other things that tie to why we do what we do. For many businesses, it's profit, but that's not the thing that keeps you in business. It's other things that keeps you in business, your reason, your purpose, your values, and things like that. Okay. And then when we think in terms of self-regulation, I look at it as self-evaluation. Now, when we are selling a product or a service, we need to know, did they like it? Did they enjoy it? Did it give them value? Did I serve my client? Did it help them in any way? So that's a form of self-regulation where you are checking in, because when we talk about self-regulation, it's checking in with yourself, checking in on your emotions, finding out if you're doing okay, giving yourself some self-love and self-care and things like that. When we tie that to businesses, we need to know, are we serving our clients well? Are we delivering what they want? Are we giving them value? Are we solving a problem? And really doing that evaluation from time to time so we as businesses can progress, okay? And then there's the self-motivation aspect, right? Where if we think about our teams, how do we connect with our teams? How do we communicate with them? Are we listening to them? Are we able to empathize with our colleagues, with our subordinates, anyone we are leading? How do we help each other manage, setbacks? And even businesses have goals, and motivation is tied to goals. What kind of goals have we built as a business? And what does that mean for us? And what does that mean for our team? What does that mean for our stakeholders, for our clients, things like that? And eventually it comes to relationships and social awareness. How are we communicating with the community? What are we giving back to the community? How do we show compassion? How do we empathize? How do we build rapport? If you just think customer service, right? And in terms of customer service, this is why I like to teach customer service as well, because it's so linked to emotional intelligence, is that what degree do we show care for our clients? Are we educating our clients? Do we provide the knowledge that they need when it comes to our services? Are we providing them the support? Are they updated often? When they're annoyed or confused, are we able to recognize that? Are we able to show compassion and empathy? So if you think about it, every element when it comes to our business is tied to emotional intelligence. Okay, this is just just a different perspective. If we link, humans' way of looking at emotional intelligence as to how they manage themselves and others. But if you look at it from a business perspective, it's very linked, very, very linked.
Yes. So one of the questions that keeps, and I know that it wasn't one that I kind of screened with you ahead of time, because I like to make you guys aware of the questions I'm going to ask. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. I'm thinking of a client in particular that was talking about that spiral that we kind of go into. Her day got shifted, like new client work came through that she wasn't expected. So she's a mom with 2 kids, very busy. And she automatically started beating herself up that she wasn't hitting her to-dos, getting her tasks done that she had put forth for the week, because her schedule kind of got blown up because she knew new client work coming through.
Right.
What would you recommend in a scenario like that? Is there something that we can rely on within ourselves to kind of get out of that spiral?
Yes, absolutely. So there are simple things that we can do when anyone, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that happens to me as well. I'm a mom of 2 and stuff comes up and you get overwhelmed and you have all these tasks suddenly on your plate. The first thing you need to do is just breathe. People forget they need to breathe. Just step back, take a couple of deep breaths, because here's the thing. We can't think clearly when we're frustrated, when we're irritated, when we're overwhelmed and we've got all this stuff going on. It happens to me. Sometimes my first reaction will be, I'll be all overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, I have to do this. I have to do that. This needs to happen. And I realize I'm not thinking clearly anymore because I'm not stepping back. So we just need to step back and breathe. Secondly, language is going to be important. What are you telling yourself at that moment? If you're going to say things like, oh my goodness, I'm so busy and I can't get things done and I've got too much going on and, my plate is full, that's exactly what we tend to attract some more. that we look, because now we're shifting our focus to busy. We're shifting our focus to, I've got too much to do. I can't get stuff done. And what ends up happening is that we end up having more than we can handle, because that's where our focus is. So we have to shift our focus and say, well, okay, now take a deep breath and think about encouraging yourself, motivating yourself. And this is something I do. I will tell myself, I've got this. I can handle it. I can manage it. I'll make it happen. I'll get things done. Even if you don't believe it for the moment, pretend as if you've got everything under control. Because the more we do this self-talk, the more calmer we're going to become, the more likely we're going to breathe. So we have oxygen going in our brains, and then our brains can do the work that it's supposed to, process information, come up with ideas and stuff like that. And then you see that you'll start to have this flow. And I often tell people, don't use the word busy in your day. Always use the word productive. Tell yourself, I was productive today. I got stuff done today. I made things happen today. And even if it didn't, tell yourself, I made it happen. I'll get it done. And I use this with myself very often. Suddenly a whole bunch of stuff comes and I only have like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I'll just step back. I'll take a couple of deep breaths. I'll even ground myself. I usually teach a lot of grounding exercise. It's really just connecting with the earth, breathing, closing your eyes, and even just visualizing. You got it. You made it happen. It's done. And then your mind can't really tell the difference between whether or not it happened or whether or not you're still working on it. So in your mind, you've got it under control. And as you are working, just keep telling yourself, I've got it. I've made it happen. I've got it under control. And believe it or not, it works magically. I don't know how, but it just works. Then the next hour seems to slow down. I don't know how, it just does. And you get more done than you expect because you're calm, you've managed your emotions, you feel completely collected, and you're like, I can make this happen. I've got this done. And the more calm you are, the easier stuff happens. So it really comes down to managing the emotions you are feeling at that moment, realizing, okay, I'm getting frustrated, I'm getting irritated. I know this is not going to help me. So let me first calm down. Let me manage my emotions right now, and then let me tackle what I need to. And almost always, you'll get stuff done. You'll make things happen. And even if you have a setback, it's not going to bother you. It's not going to get the better of you, and you'll find another way to make it happen. So this is something I always tell, the easiest thing, just breathe and start talking to yourself positively and let yourself know, I've got this, I'll make it happen.
So good. No, that was so helpful. And I love that you talked about the grounding exercise. It's just really basic. But it's what we need to do. And the way you talked about, like, you're tricking your mind,
right?
Tons of different things. And it's that positive vibrations that you're putting out there rather than being negative and kind of sulking into it and continuing on that path. You just forged this path of visualizing that it's actually happened. That was genius. So good. I loved it. So my question becomes, how do we determine our emotional intelligence?
A lot of this has to do with observation, and it goes back to language again. When I start out sharing information on emotional intelligence, I have all my students first observe. Observe how you wake up in the morning. Observe how you behave when you're dealing with a bad day. Observe how you are when somebody ruins your day or when you're sitting next to someone who's complaining. You have to start out with observing what you do, how you think, how you behave. And if it leans to a more negative direction, you probably need to work on your emotional intelligence. If it leans to more positive, where you wake up feeling good and happy about another day, you're like, hey, I got another day. And I always tell people, we get another day. We get to go to work. We get to spend time with our family. We get to be with our children. You don't have to. You get to. And when you shift those words in your mind, everything shifts around you. So it's really about paying attention to how you feel. And we call this emotional states. What emotional states am I living in throughout the day? What's my emotional state in the morning? What's my emotional state when I go to work? What's my emotional state when I'm with my family, when I'm with my boss, when I'm with my colleagues? The more we observe this, the more we can manage it. So if we notice, hey, when I'm around my boss, I don't feel so good. I have this weird feeling in my chest. And that's when we have to start to explore that. Well, why do you have this feeling? Or when you're around your family, you're feeling happy, amazing, you're joyful, you want to have more of that. You see, the positive emotions are easy. Those are what we want to have more of, and we want to experience more of that. It's the negative emotions that we need to be paying attention to and notice how we are managing ourselves during those negative emotions, during negative situations, because that gives us a sense of self-awareness as to what to do and how to regulate our emotions and how to motivate ourselves. Of course, all of that is part of emotional intelligence, but the first step is just observing yourself. That's it. And then, hey, I'm leaning towards more negativity. If I'm living in negative emotions most of my day, that's when we need to start working on that and start to kind of switch that around.
Okay. That is so helpful. You also have a freebie that you are offering. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yes. So I have a freebie called Emotions Matter. It's a free course on emotional intelligence for anyone who wants to learn what emotional intelligence is. It's really the basics of emotional intelligence. And I talk about the 5 components of emotional intelligence. So what is self-awareness? What is self-regulation? What is self-motivation? Relationships and social skills. And I give examples in that as well. Plus there's a handbook. So for people who want to do the exercises, because there's an exercise in each module, and you can do an exercise and already get started on the journey of emotional intelligence. But of course, if those who want to take it a step further and they feel like, hey, I get this, but I want to dive a little deeper, I have a premium course as well called Reset, Recharge, Reinvent Your Life. And that's all about really digging deeper and how to manage your life goals through emotional intelligence. I usually offer that 3 times a year. So anyone can just go on the site where the freebie is, and you can always keep an eye out for when the next course starts again. So, and of course, at the end of the basic course, the free course, I usually have information about that as well.
Okay, perfect. No, we will definitely make sure that we link to that in the show notes, because that is going to be so helpful in the next step that dives even deeper into this. Where are the best places to connect with you?
So I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page as well. And of course, if anyone's on Clubhouse, they can connect with me on Clubhouse as well. So all my profile information is there as well. So I can be found in all those.
Okay, perfect. We're going to link to those in the show notes as well. And always, my audience is very used to DMing me on Instagram. So I'm sure they will do the same with any questions that they have to you as well. Sheetal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my audience. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, that was such an amazing conversation with Sheetal. I just truly, truly believe in this. As you heard during the interview, Sheetal and I met on Clubhouse, and she was speaking on stage about emotional intelligence. And all I could think to myself was, oh my goodness, we so need this right now, because it really, truly is. It's based how you're going to be productive. You heard her talking about self-awareness and being mindfully motivated. These are things that we need to have conversations about so that we can continue to move forward in our businesses. So if you haven't already gone to her opt-in, where she is offering that free course that goes even deeper into your emotional intelligence, send me a DM, hop over to the show notes. I will make sure that that it is linked up so that you can grab that. As always, I appreciate you guys so much when you leave a rating and review on iTunes. It makes it so much easier for me to get such great guests like Sheetal to be able to come on and speak to you guys about these topics. When they see the ratings, they decide whether or not it's a podcast that's worthy of their time. So once again, I appreciate those who have already left a rating and review. And if you haven't already, I would so appreciate it if you did. All right, guys, until next time, I will see you all then.